Welcome to Meet the Author. Join us for an in-depth talk.
Mike, it's good to see you again. First of all, we're old friends. Now
Yeah.
you are about to be a published author. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it's been quite the journey ever since we first knew each other in first grade or so, all the way to how this has evolved now. But I've always had this passion for writing, and I've got, thoughts in my head all the time, and I would capture them, either on writing or nowadays, in a verbal notepad or something like that. But I remember, I think it was about fifth grade at Paul Bunn, and our teacher had asked us to write a poem. And it wasn't the poem where it was staccato and everything had to rhyme. It was more like of a prose type of a thing. And I had just got this wild idea, and I wrote something about some lucid pond and lake and lights and out in the woods and so on. And it just came natural to me. And when I turned it in and the teacher read it the next day, I think she tried to accuse me of plagiarism. She couldn't believe that a fifth grader could write like that. And I think that was the start, and when I was able to actually tell her the meaning behind all the things that I had written in there, she realized I did that. And that was kind of the start of it. So around the fifth grade time frame.
The name of the book is The Wacker Files.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about the premise of the book and where you came up with the title name.
So I have always been a huge fan of thrillers and mysteries, and especially something that makes you think, and it's not from the very beginning, that's the way it's going to end. There's going to be twists and plot turns and so on. And that's kind of been my passion. In property management, I've traveled all over the United States, and I've seen many, many cities. From my time in the Army, I've learned about leadership. I've learned about structure, attention to detail. Same thing in property management. And I also see where systems can become very corrupt if they're not monitored. And so as the world has progressed with AI and everything else, I've seen that, you've got systems in the world in these cities that monitor traffic lights and all these other things and so on. And I took that concept and said, what if beneath a city there was a logistics center that was tracking people and actually predicting things and causing things to happen? A lot of our things happen in fate. This happens because somebody pushed us or wanted us to have that happen, and it created the concept. So, of all the major cities I've been to in the United States, I'd never truly been to Chicago. So that forced me out of my comfort zone, that I had to do a lot of research. And I thought Chicago would be a great place with all of its history. And I've been to the O'Hare Airport many times, which was the foundation for the setting for a lot of the book. There is actually a street named Wacker Drive in Chicago. And coming from the Army and coming from property management, everything has an acronym. And so I had to create this environment that was monitoring everybody and forcing us to do things. And I used that street because the street name was intriguing to me. And I came up with a WACR, which is the Wide Area Civic Knowledge Extraction Registry. And that's what the government is calling this big system that's underground.
So I think the book is timely.
Right.
And you told me previously that this is something you had been thinking about for a long time.
Probably around the start of the AI splurge, a few years ago, this really morphed in a different direction, and it took me in a direction that I thought people will really, they'll understand this, and they could, as you just said, can conceive that this may be going on in a lot of major cities, and cause them to think differently about their actions.
You know that once people rip through this page turner thriller that you're about
Yeah.
to release, they're going to want more. Is this a planned series that's going to come out?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's going to be five books in total. It's going to span across the United States, and then the last book will go global. So this thing is going to spread to different cities. That's going to cause the main character to have to to travel and pick up and do some things in different cities as well. There'll be a different premise behind each one. This one is the one that's going to get everybody hooked. I'll tell you that. And I think people are going to want to follow this closely, like a TV series or a movie series.
Tell me a little bit more about the main character. What's his name? Who is he?
The main character's name is Evan Mercer. And Evan was an astounding lawyer, very prominent, on a path to become the head prosecutor. And this program, whatever you want to call it, saw something going in a certain direction, and it involved a court case. And Evan was the lead prosecutor for this thing. And I don't want to give too many things away, but the system fabricated the court case, caused him to lose in such a disgraceful manner that he had to give up being a prosecutor and go into private law at a very lowly level. And he's a guy that was not going to say no. And then it leads to, him uncovering, what's gone on behind the scenes there in Chicago.
In your wild imagination, who do you see playing your main character?
An old blast from our past, but a guy named Victor Slazak, who we went to school with, I think would be perfect for this character.
Yeah, and Victor is a working man's actor, still out there,
Right.
still doing great things. I would be remiss for the writers out there to not ask you a little bit about your writing process. What's your routine?
I've got a lot of attention to detail, and my structure is everything. So I will come up with a thought, a theme, and then I'll produce an outline. And the outline then becomes the structure that I start filling in. So as I come up with one thought of something that I think could go, into the production of a book, I will outline every aspect of it. Who are the characters that I want to have in there? What is the end result? The military taught me the completion backwards principle, and that is start at the end and work your way forward. If you do that, there is a definitive end, and then you can fill in the blanks up to that point. So I try to find the ending first.
The book is available on Amazon. You're a self-published author,
Yeah.
which is great. Do you see all your books being self-published?
I think in everything that I've done in life, I needed to be the one that learned every aspect of this. When I was in the Army, I started out as a private. I didn't have anything handed to me, and I worked my way all the way up to being a first sergeant. In property management, I started out as a leasing agent, and I worked my way up through every rank and position, and now I'm the vice president of a pretty large company down here in Miami. And using that concept, I said, I don't want to just write the book and then go hire somebody to develop my cover and to do my marketing and so I wound up learning how to copyright. I learned how to create a publishing company. I learned how to do the marketing. I learned how to do the formatting. And if I ever choose in the future to farm that out, I'll know right from wrong. I'll know what right smells like. But I needed to do this on my own. I think it's kind of like the flesh and blood of a songwriter doing those same things, kind of living what they're singing about. I needed to live every aspect of this to truly know how hard it is.
You mentioned your military career. Just briefly, can you describe what your job was in the military?
Yeah, I joined up as a field artilleryman, so firing cannons long range, and just progressed all the way through. I've done work with the nuclear weapons back in the early days, and from the small howitzers that we drop out of airplanes in the 82nd Airborne, which I was a part of, to the heavy mechanized howitzers that look like tanks that we used in Germany when I was stationed over there. To rocket launchers when I was stationed in Korea. And I worked my way all the way up to being a first sergeant in charge of the entire unit. And I went airborne, and I was 82nd Airborne and 101st Air Assault as well.
Thank you
Right.
for everything that you've done and your service. It's certainly appreciated. And I want to drum up some book sales for you. So